On this video, we'll review the first annual Experts Draft that SiriusXM conducted in April of 2021. I'm Alan Seslowsky here with RotoWire football analyst Jim Coventry. To see the full draft board, click the link in this video and you can see where all of the experts picked. Jim, what was some of your takeaways?
I was really thinking after last year with so many running backs tanking because of injury, performance issues, I thought that the draft would have a little more variation in the first couple of rounds, but not really. We came through those first two rounds, 5 or 6 receivers went, 1 tight end, and the rest running backs. I do think at pick number 3, going with Nick Chubb in a PPR league, I think Howard Bender was pretty ambitious with that move.
You picked Dalvin Cook with your first pick. Do you think that he's going to be the consensus number 2 heading into 2021?
I do think so. I think that even though he continues to miss some time, he's shown enough durability and enough floor and upside in an offense that utilizes his skills quite well in the passing game, goal line, every other facet. I think he has to be the consensus number 2 in the overwhelming majority of drafts.
What is your strategy in the first couple rounds when you get to that Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and the top wide, whoever your top wide receivers are?
So I do still believe that running back scarcity is important to address. I have 12 running backs at the top of my board, and I put them above every other wide receiver and tight end. But after those 12 running backs evaporate, I then have a lengthy tier of wide receivers, and then Kelsey and Kittle are in that as well. Obviously, Kelsey will be long gone by then. But so if a second one of those 12 running backs are available, I will take them in the first 2 rounds. Otherwise, I will go with 1 running back and deal with the rest later.
It's hard to keep Darren Waller out of the tight end 2 position. Where are you on Waller heading into 2021?
So I have him definitely below George Kittle, and I am not very optimistic of him repeating his performance. And the reason being, basically, the Raiders had no wide receivers. Aguilar, I get it. He was the deep shot, and he got his targets. But Darren Waller was their wide receiver one, not tight end. He was their wide receiver one. And those targets cannot maintain at that level. Either Henry Ruggs is going to get a little bit better or Bryan Edwards is going to somewhat break out, but one of those 2 or both are going to at some point command some targets. And Darren Waller is living on unsustainable target share because he is not the Kelsey Kittle type of player who would demand targets regardless of situation. So I will let somebody else deal with Darren Waller. And if none of the receivers show up for the Raiders, then he probably earns his ADP. But if those receivers show up, I think that volume goes way down and he's a middle of the pack guy.
What's your draft plan for tight ends in 2021?
I do love George Kittle, and I do feel he can put up another legendary season. But you know what? I had my opportunity. It was the 3rd round, and I was up to pick, and Kittle was on the board. It was the 2nd pick of the 3rd round, and A.J. Brown was there. And I went with the receiver because my tight end strategy is I feel I'm going to take a couple of shots at the tight ends between number 7 and number 14 on my board and hope that between them we have either one who breaks out, and Noah Fant is one of those players on my list, along with Dallas Goedert, and there are a number of other players that fit this bill as well, Mike Gesicki, and that is kind of where I'm falling. And the way this draft fell, it was the 8th round, and Noah Fant was the 7th tight end off the board, and I was happy with him. And then I came back in the 13th round, and we know Evan Ingram's unreliable, but if I'm pairing him to see if one of the guys breaks out, that gives me a little flexibility. So I'm probably not going to spend that premium draft pick. Like I said, I had the chance, and I passed on Kittle.
What did you think about veterans like David Montgomery, who was the running back 1 for the last 2 months of the season last year, or Chris Carson, and even James Robinson, who is going to have to dodge a few bullets before he's named the unquestioned starter? What about those 3 guys specifically in relation to the 2 younger running backs we just talked about?
David Montgomery was seeing 85% snap share because the Bears had Cohen out with injury. They had no other option at running back. In that stretch of greatness, he didn't face a defense that was better than 6th worst against the run down the stretch. It was the most favorable schedule. He had the most favorable workload. Before then, he was a very ordinary, if not subordinary running back. I expect that to go right back to where he was. He's a borderline RB2. So drafting him based on that finish, I think is very, very frustrating to me, but maybe somebody else believes in him. I can't see it. And then Chris Carson, love the player, but the consistency, the Seahawks will switch him out here and there, share his touches. He gets nicked up a little more than I'd like. His usage in the passing game is inconsistent. And then James Robinson, Carlos Hyde, not much, but if he siphons 5 carries a game, Robinson was living in, for a while, 90% snap share. At the end of the season, the Jaguars were using other running backs in there. They started to already alleviate his workload. So some of those guys, they had a big COVID problem in their backfield and injuries. So I don't think James Robinson is going to see more than at maximum 60% snap share. So of those three players were buried way deeper on my draft board. And I was stunned that Antonio Gibson and Miles Sanders fell. More Gibson than Sanders. I know Sanders is falling because people were disappointed with him. But the fact that Antonio Gibson on a per game as a rookie finishing as an RB1 went after those players, that was the one that was stunning.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/try.